Yo, what's up guys? It's gonna be an interesting one today. So I asked Com2us based on GDPR law, or which is European law, all of the information that Summoner's War gathers on. And Neo made a post about that on Reddit, pretty much showing the results and also how to do it. I'll also leave a version of it in the description down below, but I'll talk about that in a second. What is the information you get on all of this? Well, amongst others, all of the summons that you did, how much you purchased, and all of that kind of stuff. Because simply by European law, they have to provide, which then you can of course check, am I overrate or underrate of the LD5? Well, I got the results on my account as well. So this is the complete thing that you do get. You get like all of the summon logs, but the post that Neo made, you also ask for pretty much everything they have, which also gives you a lot of information of where that you log in from all of these things. I blacked out like device model and the IP address and that kind of stuff. But yeah, you get a lot of information over here. Also further down at the bottom, they give like all of the information of all of the devices and what kind of OS did you log in from and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much all you get. But personally, I think we're mostly just interested in this part over here. What is the summon rates and am I actually over or under rate? Plus, I'm going to be showcasing you as well. How much did I do spend on this game? I made the estimate before, about 50 to 60k was my estimate. I'll talk a little bit more about that because that number does need context. And I also did say if it's way over that, I'm not going to show it. So I'm actually in reasonable numbers of my estimation, but is a number with context. These are all of the scrolls. I'm going to be excluding, like it's a little bit more readable over here. Let's actually put my face over there. Is say do or an employee.exe. Now, well, it's an Excel sheet, but whatever. These are all of the scrolls with the values that they do give towards LD5s. So we have the 0.35 rate on the normal LD scrolls. We have the 0.40 rate on all attribute scrolls and collapse scrolls. And starting from the 2022, also the SWC legendary scrolls also could give LDs. And then we also have that starting the 10th year, you also had the small chance of a 0.05 to get an LD5 on a 10-year scroll, 11-year scroll, 12-year scroll, that kind of good stuff. So I added in all of those numbers over here. Let's actually remove all of those that don't give any LD value. If I'm mistaken anything, let me know in the comments as well. Maybe there's one thing that actually does not give anything. We did 76,000 freaking mystical scrolls. That's a lot. So these are all of the scrolls that I do have to count towards the LD count that I made earlier. If I put in a number over here, it will put it over there and then the rate what it is for an LD. So if I put 270 in here, that should be like 1 LD, for example. So in the case of an LD5, it's this number, the number you've seen before, that will give me 1 LD5 over here. Then, of course, the question, how many LD5s did I actually pull? Well, we can check that over here on the SWGT side, and I have 26 LDs. However, they do mention that in the data is since the 18th of May. Because of the 18th of May, my Gianna that is pulled in 2016 does not count. We start counting from Songchen Lao, so that is -1. We also have to do +1 because of a dupe on a light pony that was pulled around the time of here. Well, actually, before this one, because this was my, this demon was the blessing, or was the Ritsu? No, wait, the demon was the blessing. Actually, funny enough, I think I pulled the demon before the Ritsu. Both on the same day, maybe it doesn't track that well on this side, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure I pulled the demon before the Ritsu, because that was the blessing. So we're back on 26. However, one more thing. So then in the end, we're still looking at 26 because we minus the Gianna and we up 1 dupe. So we're still looking at 26 LD count. So for that reason, the number of non-LDs is going to be 26. If this number is lower than that number, I'm considered lucky. If this number is higher than this number, I'm considered unlucky. So let's add in all of the values over here and we're going to see those numbers go up. So 24 of those. Actually, kind of interesting that it shows 24 of these scrolls. I think that's not fully correct because even in the last video that I already did, if we check the value of the last video that I did probably more than 50 of those already, which they do mention that my last login date was on the 19th that they gathered in this, but I think they gathered this list earlier because at the start of this month, I already did a session where I did more than 24 of those, 100% sure. So I think that this might be a little bit outdated. So, however, does that mean that we can exclude the final LD5 that we pulled on from this? I'm not entirely sure because it's kind of like back and forth for my +-1 LD5. So we keep in mind this number +-1 LD5 as well, because as you can see, this number is just clearly not how many of these I summoned, because currently I summoned over 100 of these minimum. Then we go for these. Then also these should be higher. Like everything should be a bit higher already for what I currently have. This 61. We see the number already cranking up. Not that many LDs just yet, actually, that I should be having. I guess from the 10-year scrolls and the 11 and 12-year scrolls, I've been pretty lucky on those. Like, that's where I got a lot of my LDs, whether the rate actually isn't supposed to be that high. So for all of the scrolls that we did so far, we only had to have, by average, 3.3 LD5s, which is definitely not much. But this is where a big number comes in. All attributes adds in another 3. Still not that much, though. But then we go into the real LD scrolls, which is going to be this at first. So that's already 10 LD scrolls, and then the real big number, which is going to be this one over here, which says a 25. So technically, by this number, I am considered lucky because it's one higher. I have one extra LD rather than I should have. But I do think that this number is also, I'm not sure if we would have to exclude one LD5 because I'm pretty sure that these numbers are coming in a little bit later rather than the exact date. So it might have been that the value of the GTN Dasheng isn't pulled in here just yet. So what does this number mean? Well, first of all, if we look at the LD count, with the LD count, at some point I went 1,000 dry. So within this, getting me back to an average number, I also went 1,000 dry, so it kind of evens out at some point. However, it's still one of those things. Let's say you start off your session with 1,000 dry. You're probably going to quit before you pull your first LD5. It does also kind of showcase that it does even out to a certain extent, even if it feels really bad in the moment. Which is also why I would recommend Com2us to put this kind of information in the game, because a lot of people feel that they're more unlucky than they might actually be. As in, for me as well, I'm one of those people. There's always a certain bias to it. I definitely cannot exclude myself on that. I feel myself more unlucky than you actually see with numbers in game. So therefore, why not just publish these numbers in game so you don't have people making an ungodly amount of customer support tickets and like spamming your customer support with nonsense, because you can just actually put this in game and maybe put it behind the walls like, are you sure you want to see your rate because you might get disappointed? Same for how much you spend and that kind of stuff, right? I guess I'm kind of on average level, like this ±1. I would say I'm average, maybe slightly above average with all of this. I will definitely continue on the LD count, which normally is up there, but now it's on the bottom over there, until we at some point get back to the average for the LD count. The question still remains, is this game insanely streaky and therefore feels unfair? Yes. Let me actually show you this one. This is from a viewer of mine, Lex. He did actually mention I was allowed to name his name. I'm like, people are gonna hate you for this one. So what are we looking at over here? Well, these are brackets of 25 each. A yellow one is an LD4. A red one is an LD5er. So if we keep in mind 25, 50, 75, 100, 125, and a 150. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 LD5s in 150 scrolls. Balanced, Com2us, balanced. Not bad, not bad. He did the math for it to even out this number of getting 6 in 150. Someone else, or he has to go later, so hard dry that he gets like 1 in 3,000 or something. Like, that's how crazy this is for rates. Like, pretty much back-to-back pulls over here and over there. That's just, there's not even an LD4 in between on both sides. That's just absolutely absurd. So for that reason, I would really encourage Com2us to take a look at this thing. I made it in a video prior, and I'll showcase a little bit about this in just a second. But I do first want to showcase what people are very curious about. Say, how much did you spend on this game? But this thing is actually a different version of a soft pity, which actually is going to showcase you that it can be a lot more fair for people pulling LD5s versus one another. And I did the whole math on this kind of stuff, which is actually based on something that Math Plus Gamers did like way back. But first, the big question. Say, how much did you spend on this game? And before you start clipping this out of context, because I'm pretty sure people are going to share this and putting this out of context, listen to the context as well. So how much did I spend? Well, my estimation that I mentioned was going to be 50 to 60k euros. It is 83k US dollars. Technically, that means it is lower than the 50 to 60k euros that I expected, because this is without discounts. This is just the clean number that Com2us sells these exact packs for in normal state. I always have been using Huawei App Gallery. Before that, I was using some Chinese thing when I was living back in China. And these are somewhere between 20 to 50% discounts on pretty much everything that I've done, plus the exchange rate of the US dollar to euros. We're gonna get towards about 50k euros, which is, by all means, it's a lot of money. It is still a number with context. So what is the context? Well, best example that I can give, first of all, in the Netherlands, we commonly say when people are smoking and they calculate for how many years they're smoking, how much is a pack, how many packages they smoke, and then come to the conclusion, I could have bought a Lambo if I didn't smoke. It's like, guys, I never smoked a single cigarette in my life. Where's my Lambo? Where's my Lambo? Well, here, maybe. No, well, you can buy a Lambo from this shit. But that's the thing. People are going to spend their money regardless. You're not going to just save all of the money if you don't spend it on A or B. That is just a simple fact. If you didn't buy this, you were going to go for drinks. If you didn't buy that, you were going to go for fancy dinners. If you didn't have this hobby, you would have bought shoes. You would have bought clothes. You would have bought other nonsense. You would have spent ungodly amount on an ex-girlfriend that's going to leave you anyways. Like, people are going to... Or maybe they stay and then you spend it on whatever. Like, you're always going to spend your money if you have that money. And that is also my main thing for this. Yes, this is a lot of money. But also, for me as a content creator, it's somewhat of a weird investment with a really bad ROI. If I pull an LD5, I have 3, 4, 5 easy videos. If I pull a good LD5, I have 10 easy videos. Hey, that's my source of income. I've been doing this kind of stuff full-time since 2021? No, wait, 2022 pretty much, but I've been doing content creation since 2018, 2019. Any of this money that you see over here that I spent on the game was also revenue through the game. And actually, since of the last 4 or 5 years, anything that I make out of YouTube, Twitch, or sponsors, or any of those kind of things, do not go back into the game. Anything that goes back in the game is most of the time that I do account services, like playing RTA Wings or reruning or whatever, that kind of stuff. Why do I not promote that like crazy? Because I don't have to be a crazy rich guy and I don't want to do that 24/7. Like an account here or there, I'm totally fine. But doing that 24/7, I'm not looking out for. And that's also the thing. Like, if more people ask me, I kind of just will more in the game. That's pretty much just all how that rotates back and forth. So once again, yes, is that a lot of money? Yes. Could I have spent it on something else? Yes. But actually my spending is not that crazy. Plus, keep one thing in mind. I've played the first 3 to 4 years of this game full free to play. Currently, I'm spending about, like, I would say 500 on a bad month to like a K&a-half on a good month. Or maybe you would have to reverse the good and the bad, but whatever you want to call it. And therefore, I made the estimation that I've been doing that for 4 or 5 years. And therefore, I get to the point of probably 50k euros that I spent in the game, which was pretty accurate on that point. But the biggest TLDR of the whole spending that I can give is very simple. Do not spend any money that you cannot miss on luxury products. Spending in Summoners War is a luxury product. Having someone re-ruin your account is a luxury product. If you have plenty of money and you can miss it and you don't want to invest the time or something yourself, sure, you can spend on things. But if you simply don't have that money, or you're like low on cash, or you have to pay your bills or your rent or your loans or whatever, first pay those kind of things and then start thinking about like, okay, what can I spend for entertainment or just for enjoyment or whatever? So that's about the whole topic about how much I spent in the game. Then we're going to go back into the topic of how can the LDs feel more fair and more balanced, rather than one guy pulling 6 LD5s in a session of 150. I did like 260 scrolls in the last one, didn't get a single one. So yeah. And apparently I'm still averaging average. It's just not shown in the LD count because the LD count is getting close to like double drop rate dry. So how can Com2us prevent that? So let me talk what you see on the screen right now. The normal odds of an LD5 scroll is a 0.35. So rather than having a 0.35% chance, I will start off with a 0.04% chance. And I will do the increments of I have to say this correctly, I think 4 zeros or like 0.40 is 18 every time that is added to it if you don't get an LD5. So every time you don't get an LD5, you have a high chance of getting LD5. Now, what do we have with the winning and losing? So what do we have over here? This is 2 players on method A, which is the current Com2us method, and then 2 players on method B. Both of them are going to do a 2,860 scrolls, which is the average rate for 10 LD5s by just the normal standard average. So, and then we can see is like, okay, how much is the big difference between player A and player B doing that exact same method? And then the winning and losing is the gap between the two players. So in this case, we have player A on the Com2us method getting 10, player B on Com2us method getting 8, and then on my method, we have a 12 and a 9. So every time I press the F2 button and then I click somewhere else, we can see the difference. And this is exactly what I see the big difference in. So in my method, someone is pulling 11 and someone's pulling 12, which is pretty close to the right average. So I think these number of 4 and 0, 18 actually do make sense. And then we have the Com2us method where one guy is pulling the same amount of scrolls getting 8 LD5s and the other guy is getting 15. Sure, it's of course like, do you get the right LD5s and blah, blah, that kind of stuff. But you already see that there's a pretty big margin. And let's just run this method or like this test a few times. Let's do that again. So over here we have 1 apart, so we have 8 and 9, slightly unlucky on both sides. Here we have a 9 and a 12, so we have 3 over there. So once again, my method is winning. Over here, we got an 11 and an 11 here. Someone's getting 4. He's supposed to have 10, but he gets 4, and the other dude gets 12. We have an 8 gap on the Com2us, just like pure RNG method, rather than the soft pity. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing like, oh, if you will more, you're gonna get so much more. It's like, no, you just get more average luck rather than one dude getting a freaking 6 LD5er in 150 scrolls. So let's see if we can get, okay, so it is not perfect. Still, you can get like a 13 on the 9 over here and a 1 and a over there. So it's still possible to have a gap. But it is what you can see, most of the time the gap on the right side is smaller. So sure, there's still a gap. Sure, you can have a no gap on the left side as well. Okay, this one is a pretty extreme example where you have 5 on the thing that I have. But most of the time, it is possible. Oh, this is a nice one. One dude pulls 19 LD5s when he's supposed to get 10, and the other dude gets 8. So sure, in this one, it is not perfect. Sure, you're going to still have a gap between one and the other, and that's something that Com2us would like to see, and that's something that Com2us definitely not going to remove. But it is at least a little bit more fair. It's more often more fair. It's not the 4 against 13 with the 9 gap over there. So 1 and 3 gap, 1 and 1 gap. That's what you would normally like to see. We have a 0 gap on the left side, which is kind of rare. 7 gap on this side. Someone getting lucky on a 16er over there. This case 8 and 8, kind of equal. 1 and 1, pretty equal. Then a gap of a 5 again. Oh, actually a gap of a 9 on this one. That's insane. Someone had to go for like a crazy dry streak on this. So what you see over here is this is the number that is the increment every time that you don't pull an LD5. This is your number of drop rate. So I'm kind of curious, if you went that dry, how much drop rate did you need to pull your first LD5? So if he said 100, he said a 1% rate to get an LD5. And then at a 1.2% chance, he pulled that LD5 and he went to set back to this number. So let's see what his highest number on that was. It's kind of hard to... I maybe should have like, okay, 122. Then next one was not crazy high. He has to go for a crazy high one at some point. He has a 1.4 drop rate before he actually pulls one. That's an insane amount already. This one is... Yeah, all of them go to like a 1% plus to actually pull anything. That's insane, though. That is actually insane. You don't see that often. So 2 and 2, 3 and 2, 6 again on the Com2us one. This one is better on the Com2us one. But yeah, is it perfect by all means? No. And can you make a better one of maybe lowering this? Like, that's also what I can do. I can lower the odds and then start this off with like a higher increment value. And then you can kind of just toy around. Like, the lower the odds are at the start and the higher the increment value is, the more fair it would technically be. But yeah, as I said, like, you can throw around these numbers all day and that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's just one of those things. Is it by all means? Actually, the previous ones did feel better, in all honesty, like the 0.18 on a 4. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Personally, I would love to see this. I think it's also a lot better for people not having like a crazy dry streak, because if you have your moment where you start off with 1,000 LDs and you get 0 LD5s on that, that's kind of your quitting moment, right? And there's plenty of players that actually do have that issue. And then on the other side, if you pull like 4 LD5s in a row, it's like a lot of dopamine in like a very short period of time. But it also kind of makes you numb to it. So I don't think that it's good to pull that many LD5s in a short period of time. Because in the first place, you don't even know what to build. how to build it, where to build it. And I'm pretty sure that 1/4 or even half of the LD5s that you pulled like in that one big session are gonna get any play. So yeah, in the end, supposedly, I am pretty much average for the LD5s that I have, plus minus one. Maybe I'm even slightly lucky. So starting off of January 2025, when I started the LD count, I got pretty unlucky since then. But before that, apparently I was more employee than I was after. Another very interesting thing that I just did the math on. A lot of people are saying like, oh, I played for 8 years, but I did not pull an LD5 and that kind of stuff. If we put the number of LD5s that I'm supposed to have times the 286, these are the number of LD worthy scrolls I've done. If we look at the LD count, which is a 2.9k, some interesting math on the LD count as well. The LD count I started in January of 2025, which is about a year and a half right now, a little bit less. If we take the number of LD worthy scrolls that I did throughout all of my account according to this, well, it's kind of minus a little bit because I have done more scrolls than this. So I think they should maybe add like a 200-ish. So for that idea, let's just add a 200 for the scrolls that they missed. So that does mean that post the LD count, the count that I started myself, I have done 2,900 scrolls, which is a percentage value of 39%. Everything that I did before that is 60%. This took me 1.5 years, and this took me about 9.5 years. So can you now see the value that whatever you played for 8 years back pretty much has no value towards your meaning of like, hey, I played for X amount of years and I don't have shit. Well, to be honest, I did 30 or like pretty much, yeah, 39, almost 40% of my LD value cap that I have right now in the last 1.5 years, because you simply get more scrolls, packs are worth more, you get way more rewards, and you just get way more summons in the first place rather than those 9.5 years prior. If you want to see your actual statistics of how much summoning you did and if you are over or under rate, you would have to ask Com2us for this information. Do keep in mind, if you want to ask for this information, there's two things that you want to keep in mind. You have to make a support ticket. By law, they have to reply within a month, but if they reply within a month that it is difficult, they have 3 months. They actually waited until the very last day of the 3 months for mine. So if you ask this right now, it's going to take you 3 months, so it's going to take you a long time before you know this information. Com2us on your guys' side, I would highly recommend to just simply implement this in the game because a lot of people are curious about this information. And this is also a lot more interesting information rather than saying like, I played for X year and I did not actually get something. Plus, I would love to see the information on this guy's account if he actually has like a crazy insane LD rate, or is it just a small increment that was actually crazy insane and afterwards or before he went crazy dry. Because we only know the true data if we actually have all of the data, and simply by European law, you have to show the data. So might as well put it in the game. Saves us a lot of time for waiting, saves you guys a lot of time for gathering all of this information. And it saves a lot of bitching of people thinking that they're very unlucky, aka me. But looking at the LD count, I'm still due. But by this count, I'm not due at all. I actually have one extra LD5. If you want to submit your own ticket to get this kind of information, I'll leave something in the description down below that you can just kind of copy paste and just send it in yourself, and then you have to wait for 3 months. But once again, Com2us, please just implement this in game because people are very curious about this information. There is one thing for sending in this ticket, however, you can ask for everything they have on your account and you are allowed to do that. I do know people working at customer support and gathering all of the data takes a lot of time, and therefore their workload goes through the roof by just doing a lot of nonsense. And for me personally, like all of this information when I logged in and blah, 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 this kind of stuff, I highly don't give a shit about. So rather than them having to copy paste like an ungodly amount of lines about shits they don't care about, ask for the information that you're actually interested about, which I think are going to be two things. A, your summon logs. B, if you're interested about how much you purchased, then that, I think for a lot of people, you don't want to know, especially if your spouse is also checking your email. And number 3 is the device info. So these are all of the devices that are ever logged into my account. And that could be nice to have for if your account gets hacked and they ask for like your first device info and that kind of stuff. So I would recommend to ask for these 3 things and not ask for everything. However, if you want to ask for everything, that is a possibility as well. However, for my copy paste, I will add in these 3 things that I just mentioned, and that will be in the description down below. And maybe it also sheds a little bit of light on things where the RNG can be crazy bad and maybe have to adjust a little bit where the RNG is a little bit more fair between 2 players or 20 players or 2,000 players or whatever players you have. Well, let me know in the comments what you think about this video. Guys, thanks a lot for watching and see you as always in the next one.
Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.